O Lord, you have searched me and known me. You know when I sit down in the driver's seat and when I rise up through the gears. You discern my thoughts from a car.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whatever time it is with your good self. I hope you're doing well. I'm on my work. I'm again on my way to work, and it's lovely to see a brighter morning. It's not pitch dark when you're going into work, so it's lovely to see a bit of a stretch in the days, as they say. So, another thoughts from a car, the ramblings of an idiot. Again, just something that struck me this morning as I was wandering about the house getting ready to head out, and it was this: the Rapture was supposed to take place on the 22nd of March. Now, if you're watching this, that means you're not a Christian, and neither am I. In fact, everybody I know, whether at work or living down the street or, you know, meeting in Sainsbury's or whatever, don't get me on Sainsbury's, I'll get back to them in a minute. None of them are Christians, because it appears that nobody was raptured. So yet again, another rapture prediction, another end times prediction, another failed prediction, and it continues a long, long line of these sort of predictions. And so it struck me that end times predictions, this sort of religious belief, is very much like the whole conspiracy theory mentality, in that you make all these claims, and whenever that claim doesn't turn out to be true in any way, you just move on to the next one. So if you remember, hit the lights. If you remember back in the days of Harold Camping, that was 2000 and I'm going to say 10. I'm not entirely sure. 2010, we'll say. Harold Camping made an end times prediction, a specific date, which of course didn't come true, well, obviously. And then he revised that date for about 4 or 5 months later, and of course that didn't come true. And you say, oh well, bless his little cotton socks, he was just giving it a go there, but didn't turn out to be right. Well, the problem was that lots and lots of people believed him, and they went and they sold all their possessions. They sold their house, they sold their car, they sold everything they owned because of this rapture prediction. And you might say, well, what's the sort of harm in that? Or why would you do that even? What was the point of selling anything? Would you not just give it away? Because when you're raptured up into the sky, you'll not need any of these things. But of course they sold it for money, and the money that they sold it for went, I think most of it went to Harold Camping Ministries Limited or whatever it was. But it's this whole point is that you just move on. You don't say, wait a minute, this is all very dodgy. If I keep getting this wrong and wrong and wrong and wrong and wrong and wrong, why don't I change the way I think? Because it's an ingrained, heavily conditioned way of thinking. So it's the same with conspiracy theories. People make wild conspiracy theories about all sorts of things, and they don't come true, so they just move on to the next wild conspiracy theory. And it's as if they're not affected by being wrong. And maybe that's the problem with religion and with conspiracy. Well, it is a problem with conspiracy theories, obviously. But whenever you discover something isn't correct, that should alter the way you think about something. It should alter the way you behave. It should alter how you relate to people or things or whatever it is. So being wrong is a good thing because it helps you grow. But for a lot of these people, being wrong just keeps you the way that you always were. So if you are a Rapture person, then you just say, oh, well, it wasn't now, but it will be next year or next 2 years or in 5 years' time or whatever. All the elements are there. Wars and rumours of wars. Look at all the wars they have. There have always been wars. We are a violent species. And it's the same with conspiracy theories. They just have to get one thing partially right, and suddenly that justifies everything. And it reminded me of a documentary. It was one of these Channel 4 documentaries about, this was about psychics or mediums. You know, people who would receive money for speaking, you know, and claim to be able to speak to your dead relative and all that sort of stuff. And if you've ever watched or heard Clinton Baptiste, he obviously does a character. He's an actor. He does a character who's a psychic medium, and he's taken the hand out of those sorts of people, and he makes apparently quite a good living from it. But he's not obviously a psychic medium. But I watched the Channel 4 documentary in which they talked to a believer in psychics and mediums, and he went for a reading, and he came out of the reading, and they interviewed him, and they said, well, how do you think that went? How do you think Joe Smith was as a psychic? And he said, oh, Mr. Smith is just brilliant. He knew stuff that, how could he have known that? How could he have known that? You know, and all this sort of stuff. And then the person interviewing said, we've got a transcript of what was said in that. And he asked you or made something like 25 statements to you in the course of your meeting. And only one of those statements was correct. And even then, it was only partially correct. So 24 out of the 25 statements were completely wrong. And yet this fella still continued to believe in this psychic medium person because he was a believer. That was the mindset he was locked into. So, as I approach the traffic lights that head to work, I ask you to drive safely. I ask you to be flexible in the way you think about things. Allow things that are wrong to shape you, to encourage you to grow, to develop, not to be stuck in the same mindset. And sure, if we're not all raptured up by the next time, I'll see you fairly soon. Okay, take care now. Bye-bye.